Hey everybody, I just got back from a 7-day silent Chan meditation retreat at Dharma Drum Mountain in Taiwan. I am not sitting quietly on a mountain anymore. I'm back in Taipei and wanted to share with you 5 experiences I had during the retreat that I really enjoyed. The retreat was focused on the Silent Illumination method, and that's a Zen or a Chan practice of sitting meditation. Just sitting. It's challenging because there's nothing to follow. You're not sitting and following your breath. I mean, that would be 2 things. You'd be just sitting and you'd be following your breath. This is just sitting with a quiet mind. Not only was the method challenging, but the amount we would sit was also a challenge because we would do sitting meditation 5 times a day, 40 minutes each sitting, but then we would extend that practice into walking meditation, work practice, mindful eating. So basically you were non-stop in your practice from 4 in the morning until 10 at night. And the food was also challenging. We basically survived on pain and sunshine and limp bok choy. There was this offering we would say at the start of meals, and there was this line in it about how we were only eating the food so that we wouldn't wither away, so that we could continue our practice. But there was definitely withering. I went for the intense practice though, so this was all great. It was perfect, and something I really enjoyed about all of this intense practice was the attitude of the monks. They were enthusiastic, they were happy, but extremely dedicated, consistent, and rigorous in their practice, and they shared that with us. And it wasn't about forcing us to do things. They were just constantly creating opportunities for us to push ourselves and show us how to do that. So thank you to all the teachers at Dharma Drum Mountain. It is so important to have excellent teachers on an adventure like this that can be very uncomfortable. So wake-up call was at 4 a.m. and then we had to be in the Chan hall for 4:30 for morning exercise, and then our first sitting meditation was at 5. And the Chan hall has these windows running along the back of it that face onto a forested slope. And so normally during the day, the windows would be filled with tree leaves and ferns and all kinds of tropical plants, but when we first sat down for that morning meditation, they were completely dark. And then, at the end of the meditation session, a monk would ring this quiet, tiny bell, and I'd open my eyes, and the windows directly in front of me would be filled with the deepest greens, like just every possible shade of green, probably some impossible ones, just filling the window. So I really loved the morning meditation, and I enjoyed so much waking up into nature every day. Leading up to the retreat, I was meditating for longer than 40 minutes at a time, so I felt mentally prepared, but I was not physically prepared. My legs were very uncomfortable for a lot of the meditation retreat. The cushions were a little small, so I had a bunch of cushions stacked up. I had towels wedged in everywhere. It took me 3 days before I was able to sit through one of the 40-minute sessions without adjusting my legs. The thing is, I was able to sit through the session not because the pain went away. A major component of Silent Illumination method is bringing awareness to the totality of your body and seeing all of the physical sensations as the same. So I was often not doing this because when I was struggling there, I was sitting, but then I was also doing this other thing, which was trying to control pain, manage pain, thinking about pain, judging the pain, seeing it all as different. And so I had to give up that control agenda. And that's much of what we were working on at this retreat, right? It's very similar to what we always talk about with anxiety, right? It's as long as we're trying to judge and control and manage anxiety, it's a problem and it's always going to be there and it's going to get worse. And so I had to learn how to do that with physical sensations. So a lot of what we were doing at the retreat was learning how to have physical experiences. We were talking a lot about pain, how to welcome it, how to accept it. I had a lot of help with this from an unlikely source, a bunch of crickets. So outside the meditation hall, there were these crickets just constantly making a lot of noise, and the pain was very similar. It was loud, it was constantly there. If I decided that I couldn't meditate with crickets, I could spend all of my meditation time you running around trying to get rid of the crickets, trying to silence them, but then I would have no time for meditation. And the same was true with pain. So because I was spending all this time trying to control pain, I didn't actually have time for meditation. I didn't have time for what I was there for. And so I was doing a lot of work on seeing the physical sensations as the same as all of these other sensations that we're constantly bombarded with. And yet we don't judge, and we don't attach meaning to, and we don't give up our lives trying to control. So thank you to the crickets for the extra help. I enjoyed working on physical discomfort. It was very challenging, but I know it's something that I want to explore further, because so often, I'm really good now at handling anxiety or any kind of emotional experience, but some physical discomfort comes and boom, it's so easy for me to get caught up in trying to control it. Much of the work we've done on this channel has been about changing how we relate to thoughts and emotions. And when we do that, when we change that relationship with the stuff in our heads, our minds can act differently. They can quiet down. That's a step on the journey. Another step is changing how we relate to physical sensations. And again, when we change how we relate to physical experiences, it changes how our brains behave. One of the reasons for practicing silent illumination is that when you show your brain that you're not going to react inside or outside your head to physical sensations, then your brain goes off in search of something else to do. And I got to experience that on the Friday morning of the retreat. So I'm sitting there meditating during that early morning sit that I like, and I've got my hands kind of held together in front of me like this, and suddenly I realized I can't actually feel my hands. I know that they're there, and I know that they're touching, but there's no feeling. And then I noticed I can't feel any of my body except for my feet, where they're crossing the seam of the mat I'm sitting on, and I can feel the back of my neck. And it was such an unfamiliar experience. I immediately started doing all sorts of labeling and judging in my head. It knocked me right out of it. But I understood I need to push into that experience without doing all of that stuff in my head, right? Because I wasn't keeping my mind quiet and silent. I get right back into it, quiet down the mind, just being aware of just sitting. And again, my body starts to disappear. All that's left, my feet, back of my neck again. And then the guy behind me, who had been battling this cold all week, he takes out a tissue and he blows his nose. And he's really been quite sick. And this is a snot-filled snort. Suddenly, I can't feel my body at all. My body is completely gone. All that I am is this sound of him blowing his nose. That extra noise was enough of a kick to kind of knock out my sense of touch, and my brain has allocated that extra bandwidth to sound. So I am extremely grateful that gentleman behind me battled through a cold all week just so that he could still be blowing his nose on the Friday. I am also so grateful that he didn't fart. Ultimately, having the chance to do a meditation retreat at all is the thing I enjoyed the most. When I struggled with mental illness, doing a meditation retreat just isn't something I could have done. But this is still the same brain I had back then. I haven't taken anything, I haven't added anything in, and I haven't sliced anything out of it. You can have the busiest brain, the most terrifying, horrible, intrusive thoughts racing through your head all day. You could be drowning in anxiety and depression and all the other emotions we hate. You can invest weeks and months and years into compulsions, and still you can change that. You can learn how to use your brain differently. And if you want to do something like sit on a mountain for a week quietly with your brain sitting there beside you, I mean, that's something you can do. It takes work, sweaty, challenging work, but it's doable. And the doing of it becomes very enjoyable. Learning how to handle the stuff in my head differently has opened up this whole other world for me, where I'm no longer having to try to manage my brain, but instead exploring what's possible with my brain. And I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to do that with everybody at Dharma Drum Mountain. And I hope you have the opportunity to take your brain wherever you want to take it.